So in this video, I'm going to share with you three very important outlines I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about the invisible forces controlling the international market, controlling the market, and the inefficiency in the price that we are seeing. I'm also going to talk about who is eating the profits. I'm also going to talk about the price puzzle, international market, so that some of us will be educated and know more about these things, especially we that are from Africa. Now, the first thing I want to look at that when we talk about invisible forces, you went to the market as a farmer, you planted corn, or you planted cocoa, or you planted cassava, whatever thing you planted, and you sold it, and then you took it to the aggregator. Somebody came and bought from you, or your local buyer came and bought from you, and then took it to the aggregator, and all those things like that. The prices they are giving to you is reducing. For example, at this time in 2025, the price of cocoa today is now worth 9,000 naira in Nigeria per kilogram. Meanwhile, as at 2024 December, it was around 12,000, 11,000, 12,000. Right now, it's 9,000 naira per kilogram. Meanwhile, the price per ton in the global market was $3,000 per ton. But right now, in 2025, at this time, it's about $2,300, $2,500, which shows that the global price is reducing. Meanwhile, the cost it takes is increasing, especially in Nigeria. The cost it takes is increasing. The global demand, the global price is reducing, but the cost it takes to produce or to farm cocoa right now in Nigeria has increased drastically. Why is this? It's going to show in the invisible forces that are controlling this price, because there's always an invisible hand in the international market or in market price, which is always supposed to bring things back to balance. But there are some things that are controlling these prices, and the first one I'm going to see is global prices. The global prices has reduced drastically. And looking at Nigeria's inflation, for example, Nigeria's inflation hit 33% in May 2025. The inflation hits 33%, which is a drastic increase from last year. And this is bad because even food inflation has reached 40%. You see, food inflation is now 40%, and inflation is 33.9% as at May, which is bad because the cost is taken to farmers are now increasing the prices of different commodities locally. The prices are now increasing drastically locally. Meanwhile, the global demand is reducing, which is not good for the Nigerian market or for the African market. These global prices are increasing drastically. And why is this? When you look at, let's take cocoa for example. Let's take cocoa as an example for cash crop. You have cocoa. Now you have USD Nigeria, for example. You're buying international market. You have cocoa and you have USD. What that means is that there are two things that are being exchanged here. You have cocoa one, and you have money two that are being exchanged. So it is inside these two variables that affect this invisible force, or it's affecting this global price or the local cost. Now, cocoa, we're going to talk about the money part first. The money part is very important. It's a very important aspect, because sometimes you take your money to buy something, but when the price has increased, the price of that commodity did not necessarily increase. What just happens is that the monetary value has reduced. For example, you see things like gold. You have gold is to USD, and then they said, for example, gold is about $3,000, for example, $3,000, and then you see tomorrow that the gold is now worth $4,000. What just happened is that the USD value, the monetary value, has reduced drastically. The gold is constant, the gold is just as it is, but the monetary value have increased drastically, because more money is now, different things can happen, whether more money is now in supply or whatever thing that has happened. Now, the monetary value, for example, in Nigeria, the currency is collapsing drastically. In 2022, you see that increase. In 2022, $1 was around 460 naira, but now $1 is about 1,500 naira, even though it has been stable for some months now, around 1,516. But right now, $1 has increased. How many percent? Over 200% increase in monetary value. So you see, no matter how the global price reduce the price, let's say you have a price of cocoa that is like $3,000, and then they now reduce the price to $2,500. No matter how they reduce this cocoa price, it doesn't reflect in the Nigerian naira. The Nigerian naira is still going to be seeing an increase in price, because the increase in the Nigerian naira does not balance the reduction in the cost price of cocoa in the international market for 1 ton. So the reduction in price of cocoa is not meeting up, it's not balancing with the reduction in the value of the Nigerian naira. That's another reason why we see a drastic increase in cost, or an unfair value, or an inefficient value of the price between the international market and the local market. So our currency is collapsing drastically, which is one thing that's going to affect farmers, and they're going to be seeing that because more things are now more expensive. Food prices are more expensive because of the reduction. You now need to spend more money to get the same value of that thing that you're getting, even though it has dropped in price in the international market. Another thing we have is energy and transport costs. Energy and transport costs is something that's also causing a drastic increase. It's also an invisible force that's affecting markets. We talk about fuel subsidies in Nigeria. This is something that's also affecting. Recently the government just removed fuel subsidy, and the farmer now has to bear the cost of logistics. And for example, when you see diesel for trailers or for trucks that move most of the goods, these are good commodities, moving cocoa and kernel and cashew and different commodities like that, they use diesel. And this diesel has increased drastically from 2024, even from 2022 to this point in time, which is a big increase. Now, oil prices have reduced from $3,000 to $2,500, but because the currency have collapsed, the farmers still need more money to meet up. No matter how the global price reduced, it doesn't balance with the currency that has collapsed. It doesn't balance with the collapse of that currency. The currency still need to spend more. We still need more money to balance it off. Also, we have energy and transport costs. When you look at the energy and transport costs, for example, when the goods have increased, the diesel has increased, farmer is now spending more in terms of logistics. He's spending more in terms of energy, going to those remote areas, going to the farms and things like that. The input costs have increased drastically, which is affecting the global price, which is affecting the cost. The global price is just reacting on the market on its own. The global price is just there. It's going on its own. The global price is just there going on its own, whether it's rising or reducing. But whether you are on the right part of the market depends on your local currency. Depends on your local currency and your local market and your local economy. Our local economy right now in Nigeria is in a bad shape, although we are trying to dig it out. Now the energy have increased, the transport costs have increased, now spending more. The global market is just in its own, but our costs to produce those things, to produce these commodities, are still increasing drastically. Another thing that's another invisible force that shows itself in the market is farmer abandonment. Farmer abandonment is something that is affecting the nation drastically right now. Look at the killings that's happening in Benue. Food basket of the nation is being affected by terrorists. And when the food basket is being affected, what do you think will happen to the price? Now, so many farmers are leaving the farms. So what does that happen? The supply is now lower than the demand. Don't forget, Nigeria is one of the most populous nations in the world, and so the demand is increasing. Most of our commodities are being needed even in the international space. However, as our demand is increasing, more people are being given birth to, our mortality rate is increasing, our supply is reducing. There is now less food to go around. That's why the prices of food is increasing. The inflation is going up to 40% because the input cost is too expensive. Meanwhile, the prices from the outside of the international market is low. It's not balancing with it. That's why, as many farmers are leaving the market, the few farmers that are there are seeing no incentive. There's no incentive to even continue because even the international space, even the price from the international market is reducing. If the price from the international market is even increasing, that's something else that we can talk about. But the prices from the international market are still reducing drastically, which does not balance for the increasing cost in our local market. And therefore many farmers are leaving the market. So the first thing that I talked about the global prices. Global prices are reducing drastically. Many people now are saying because of maybe the seasons or whatever thing that's causing these prices to reduce, there's now a massive reduction in global prices. However, because of the way our currency is collapsing, drastically from 416 naira in 2022 to right now 1,500 naira. The currency has collapsed, and therefore we need to spend more. There's more money going around, which is increasing our inflation rates in Nigeria. So prices of things are increasing to meet up with that inflation. I also talked about energy and transport costs. The farmers still now need to spend more because there's now a trickle down of course. When we talk about the removal of fuel subsidy, the government is not taking care of the fuel subsidy in Nigeria, and therefore the farmer has to bear the cost of logistics. And also talk about farmer abandonments, the terrorism that is happening in Nigeria, looking at Benue and different states in Nigeria. The terrorism that is happening is making more farmers not want to go to farm, and this in turn is affecting the prices of things because the supply is not meeting with the demand, and from the law of supply and demand, the higher the supply, the lesser the price, and the lower the supply, the higher the price. That's how we're seeing an increase in price of food in Nigeria. So what needs to be done? Now, the first thing that can be done, we have some solutions. The first solution is to stabilize the naira. The different things that the government can do to stabilize the naira. The government needs to stabilize the naira by trying to produce more, and all these things work together. The government can stabilize price by ensuring that the energy and transport is being stabilized. Government can stabilize naira by ensuring that many farmers produce more, that people don't need to spend more. The government shouldn't spend more on things that are not producing, because when there's an increase, one of the things that affect the naira is an increase in the supply of naira notes that is being outside. The government is printing more money to meet up with so many demand, printing more money through the central bank or through debts or through bonds that the government takes. Is increasing the naira and spending it on things that are not producing, on assets that do not produce, on things that do not produce income or value for the country. When the government keeps spending like that, or so many monies are being taken into extinction or being hoarded, then they need more money to be printed out to meet with so many demand. When there are so many people in the workplace that are not producing, and the government is spending much money to pay those people, so all those things affect the naira. So the naira is not stable because of different factors. Now, another thing is to cut input costs. That's one thing that the government can do. When we look at fertilizers, the government can assist in terms of fertilizer subsidy, in terms of fuel subsidy, just to ensure that these things work effectively, especially for farmers. You need to give incentives for farmers. That's the truth. Because if those things are not in place, then the farmers will abandon their farms and try to look for something better to do. Now, we need to cut input costs by reducing the price of fertilizers for farmers. Anybody who is producing food or agro commodities in Nigeria, they need to have incentives in terms of reduction in cost, in terms of reduction in the input cost it takes for them. There should be reduction in the input cost of lands for farmers. There should be a type of like an incentive for farmers, people who want to farm cassava. If you're renting your farm, rent it like this. For people who want to farm, there should be all those kind of reduction in prices, in cost. If you're trying to farm cocoa, or you're trying to farm banga, these are the incentives that you have. You're taking fertilizers. These fertilizers are free, or these fertilizers are this amount, very cheap for farmers to get these things, so that the farmer don't bear all the costs alone. Another thing is that you need to invest in logistics. The government has to invest in logistics. When we talk about logistics, we're talking about road network. If there's no good road network, the drivers or the people who are handling this logistics will have no option than to increase the price of traveling, or the price of taking these commodities or goods from one place to another, and the farmer has to bear the cost, and the farmer doesn't have any option than to increase the price of the food that he's selling, because the driver has increased his price, and the driver increased his price because there's an increase in fuel price in Nigeria. Another thing the government can do is to protect farmers. Farmers don't see protection. They see no reason to go to farms. If there's no protection for me, I can't go to farm, because I don't want to go to farm and be kidnapped and spend the money I've been spending to take care of my family, or to impute into the economy. I spend it to pay ransom and things like that. So many people are not going to farms anymore. Farming is now becoming a thing of the past. And right now we're going to talk about the price puzzle, and then I'm going to explain some things for us to see or to know as farmers and educators, or wherever we are in this agricultural space. Now, there are some things that are very important for people to know. Like, for example, we have the spot and the futures trading. What are some things that can help Nigerian farmers? We have the spot versus futures trading. Now, spot trading is when you go to the international market and then you buy those commodities or those agro commodities at that specific prices. You go to the market, let's say it's for $3,000 per ton, and then you buy it at that price. And then futures trading, you go to the market and you agree that because of the way things are going, I'm going to buy this, I'm setting this my price at this, I'm looking at this $3,000. So if the cocoa buyers now, or if something happens and there's a reduction in the price of cocoa per ton in the international market, your price is already set at that space, that yes, you're buying it at $3,000 because you've already agreed. However, this is very, very difficult to work in Nigeria because number one, so many farmers are not well educated about spot and futures trading, so they don't know anything about the spot versus futures trading. They don't know anything about futures trading. They just know how to go to the market and then buy at that price, which most of the times can result in losses because it's not meeting up. Even that reduction is not meeting up or balancing with the current increase in the price of goods and commodities in Nigeria. Another issue that is really affecting the farmers is the FX pass-through rate, which is something that is very, very dangerous or not effective for Nigerian farmers. For example, you have in 2024 where you have, or in like 2022 where you have the price of $1 to $1 at 400 naira, or you have it at 400 naira, and currently you have it at 1,500 naira. It doesn't balance, because if you're buying fertilizer at $500 in 2022, for example, and then you're buying it at $500 at that time is like 200,000 naira. But currently, that $500 at that international market, that $500, even if it's left the same, is now worth 750,000 naira. So you're now paying times 3 or times 4 of the price you will normally pay for that same fertilizer, because of the FX pass rate, which is caused by the naira, the currency devaluation, or the currency collapse, which we talked about previously. So that FX pass rate is something that needs to be fixed. The naira has to be stabilized one way or the other, so that something they are buying, if it reduces in that country, it's still reducing in your price, and that it's increasing drastically by over 200%. Now, all these things has to be taught to farmers. Farmers need to understand spot versus futures trading. Farmers need to understand FX pass-through rate and what they can do about it. Farmers need to understand real versus nominal prices, so that when they understand futures trade, they will know how to balance themselves. When they have an understanding of FX pass-through rate, they will understand the market and know how to price their goods for the international market, whether the international market likes it or not, because they cannot keep selling at a loss. Also, they need to understand real versus nominal prices, so that they don't just get nominal prices from the international market without considering the real effects or the real cost that is happening in their local market. Now, we also have different structural bottlenecks that are affecting the farmers in a country like Nigeria. We have different structural bottlenecks. One bottleneck that we're having is the issue of logistics. Now, we have the supplier, we have the person who is demanding, or we have the demand, which is the customer. The supplier, like the farmers, and we have the demand, which is like the customers. And then there's a link that goes through them, and if that link is not there, then there cannot be any transfer of goods. So if the supplier cannot effectively get to the customer, then there will not be effective use of that goods, and so there is no need to continue farming that goods. And so if the customer wants to at least find any way to get the goods to that customer, that customer must be ready to bear the cost for getting that goods to them. And if the farmer is not ready to, if the customer is not ready to bear that cost, then the farmer has no incentive to continue bringing that goods to the customer. That's why it's very important for the government to ensure that they take care of and look at how they can balance the logistics strain in Nigeria. In Nigeria, we have over 2 trillion post-harvest losses in this country, 2 trillion naira yearly in post-harvest losses, because there's poor road network, there's no good road network, the logistics is very, very bad, and this is affecting the way farmers get goods to customers. And then because of that, up to 40% of goods are being lost every year. Tomatoes are being lost, different commodities are being lost because of poor road network. And this is very, very bad to farmers, because that 40% that has been lost is part of their profits that has been lost, part of the revenues that has been lost, and this is going to generally affect the way. So diesel is increasing, the price is increasing, the diesel is increasing, and then trailers charge more to carry these goods from one location to another. Then there's poor road network. There's poor road network for farmers, and so farmers cannot effectively get the goods, even though they have paid for the logistics. Now there's a high tendency for trailers to fall, there's a high tendency for trailers to sink, there's high tendency for goods to spoil on the way. Now all these costs are being borne by the farmers, meanwhile the international prices are reducing, and therefore the profit that farmers are supposed to see from selling to the international market is no longer there. One structural bottleneck is that we're having too much losses due to poor logistics in our country. Another one is that so many farmers have no access to formal credits. Now, for one reason, for one reason or the other, the farmers do not have access to credit, and only 4.8%, according to the statistics, only 4.8% of farmers get access to formal credit. Now, this is something that should be changed as soon as possible, because farmers need money to be more productive. If you can be more productive, then you can have much more income that can go around for your families, and that incentives will be there. But there's now an inefficient supply versus a rising demand. So what does this say? This says that more farmers need to be trained. They need to be trained on how they can set up their businesses for access to formal credit, because once farmers cannot access credit, then they cannot just grow their businesses. They can't grow. Now, one thing that it shows by this farmers' lack of credit is warehousing. Farmers cannot build warehouses. Now, most people who build warehouses are the middlemen, and because of this, the middlemen control the prices that they are going to buy from the farmers. The farmers have, number one, they are still losing the money they are going to pay, because the middleman is one part of the supply chain, and that middleman is going to charge the farmer for getting that goods, and it's also going to charge. So the farmer is losing amount of profit by giving that away to the middleman. So the profit is also going to the middleman, which is affecting the farmers and making the farmer not to grow in his business. Now, one way farmers can get warehousing is by getting access to loan, which will make them build their warehouses, which will make them to store. There should be cold rooms, there should be equipment that can make goods to last longer. But because of this equipment, because these equipments are not there, we are wasting too many of our resources, we are wasting too many of our agro commodities, and wasting the efforts and the monies that have and the time that have gone into producing these goods. So because of this lack of access to credit, there's poor warehousing and poor storage facilities, and because of these poor storage facilities, we also have large amount of post-harvest losses, which is affecting our nation, Nigeria. Also, another thing that's there is policy inconsistency. So many things are not happening. For example, so many farmers have come together and they decided to go into farming of rice, and then they farmed rice and everything like that. They are ready to sell to the market, and before you know it, boom, there's a decree, or there's a policy that allows for borders to be open and rice imported into the country. And because the rice that is being imported into the country is now foreign rice, many of the customers now want foreign rice, and they are not looking at the side of the local farmers who have spent time to farm those goods, and then there's a dilution of price. And then the farmers see no profit at all in what they are doing. They see no profit at all, and then because of these policies inconsistency, there's losses, because the farmers see nobody to sell to, because most people want to buy foreign rice, which is foreign and it's also cheaper and better because of the way they have been produced, because of better environments that help them to produce those goods, and then the farmers are being affected. However, if those policies are favorable to the local farmers, they can produce more. If the environment is favorable to local farmers, they can produce more. There's security, there's reduced fertilizer costs, reduced transportation costs, reduced logistics costs and things like that. The farmers can produce more, and then everything is going to go well. But once these things are not there, there's an effect in the nation, and this is going to affect us as a nation. So we are in a supply shock right now. Over 2 million farmers have been displaced just in 2024 to 2025. Over 2 million farmers have been displaced. Now, what does this say? Now, over 2 million sources of food for a country like Nigeria have been lost because of insecurity, and this is affecting the supply curve in Nigeria. It's going to definitely affect the supply in Nigeria. So our food system is having big issue in this country. Also, another thing is droughts. Now, because of the level of technology and things like that, we are having an effect on drought. So farmers need to be trained, need to be taught about climate changes. Farmers need to be taught about how they can survive climate changes and things like that. This is happening in other countries. So farmers need to be taught. Not that the illiteracy in Nigeria is increasing. Farmers don't know about deforestation. They don't know anything about climate. They don't know anything about effects. They don't know anything about sports trading and different trading styles. They just accept the price and things like that. And that is because they don't understand different market cycles and things like that. They have been at a loss, at massive loss. This is not good for a country like Nigeria. Now, farming is really becoming unprofitable day by day, and which is something that we must fix, and we must call on ourselves, because if we don't fix this, unprofitability of the farming, there's no incentive for farmers to be there. And once there's no incentive for farmers to be there will be no food and there will be hunger. And when there's hunger, and a hungry man is an angry man. And there's something I usually think about when I think about farming in a country like Nigeria, which is the fact that Esau in the Bible sold his birthright of food because he was hungry. So you see, in a country like Nigeria, people have begun kidnapping their siblings, kidnapping their sisters, kidnapping their fathers, just because they need money to feed them, they want to take care of their families. People are not doing things. Even right from the days of old, people have been killing their children. When there's famine, they kill their children to eat, they sell their wives, they sell their properties, they sell things belonging to them. It's also his birthright. And that's what we're doing in Nigeria. We're selling all our resources for free, just because, or for peanuts, just because we want to survive for a day. Something that we must fix, because this is not going to last long. The farmers are being destroyed, the farmers are being displaced from their places of work, of producing food for a country. The food department is in shambles. Then there's high tendency that the economy or the country will lose itself, and the insecurity will increase, crime rates will increase, and the country will just become a place that people can no longer habitate. So subscribe to this channel, then share this video so that much more farmers can see it. Like this video and then leave a comment below on what you think the government can do, the government of Nigeria can do to fix this situation of imbalance in prices or rising cost of farming in Nigeria. What can the government do? Leave a comment below and make sure you subscribe.